I'm so happy to present the work of all my colleagues here from at the global and European level. I'd like to show that all women dedicated their life to peace. We had a wonderful panel speaking about the link between security, humane security, sustainable development, and peace. We cannot have direct democracy if we do not have structural, systemic, and sustainable peace. My name is Salomea, in translation means peace. And I dedicated all my life, also like many women like you, to peace. I wrote a triad, Unicausul. I am the Unicause, God is the Unicause, and prophetic sonnets, which integrate the concept and the theory of totality. At the soul level, everybody is one unity. We are totality. We are one in non-visible, in non-touchable, and we are at the soul level, and this soul level is a fundamental field, the consciousness field, the soul field is a magnetical gravitational field. We are one. We are unseparated. If this theory will be taught in schools, in kindergarten, everywhere, and it will be involved in all areas of society, and we'll discuss about this theory, which is able to bring peace and systemical peace in all the planet, and not only on this planet, but on this universe and on this multiverse, in one world, in this unicos. Women will be able to teach, to be the teacher of humanity together with men, like a family, the family of the planet, teaching about the truth, and the truth that at the soul level we are one. We are a toroidal field, and my soul, it's small, but when my soul, this toroidal field expands, we become the world. We become one. I made a research in 2000, and I include the humane security in the concept of sustainable development. My work was disseminated largely to all international organizations, and when I heard here from Japan, the ex-minister working with humane security included in sustainable development, I was so happy because this is a way to integrate the work of women and the work of the soul in all international policy to put humane security at the core level. We need policy, and we need policy of the beings. It's more important to have security of the human being than national security. European Union needs to put more lights on humane security and try to have common value, which are the common denominator for the future federation of Europe, and why not the future federation at the global level. European Union could become an important actor, global actor, dealing with humane security, sustainable development for world peace. All what we need is to have peace at the soul level. And this peace at the soul level will irradiate in the heart, soul, and minds of all leaders of the planet. we have this capacity to irradiate from our gravitational and magnetical field love. Peace is love, unconditional love. Peace is created by love, and love is created by peace. Democracy is very much linked with peace. We cannot have peace if we will not have the right to participate in decision making. Women and men have a say and can say not to war, every kind of war, economic war, hybrid war, informational war, all kind of war. If we can have a voice and we have the power to say no, and we have the power to write a constitution for a federal Europe and for a federal state of the planet. I mean, we can write the constitution of the planet, and we do not allow only the representative to write their rules. We have the right to write our own rules for government. People, please listen and be wise and choose the direct democracy, which is not only referendum, means participatory democracy. So to take the power from the hands of the few in the hands of many. Because at the soul level, as I told you, we are one. We are at the consciousness field and at the soul fields interrelated in this system, intra-systemic correlation between our souls and our hearts and our minds. Now, together we send the emotion and the thought of peace at the global level, in the soul and in the hearts of all humanity and all leaders, all kind of leaders, political leaders, military leaders, economic leaders, spiritual leaders, all kind of leaders. Right now we send the emotion of peace, the emotion of love, and the power. We empower all citizens of the planet in order to write their policies, to write their laws, and especially the constitutional, the mother of laws, which is the constitutional laws. Let's hope, and not only hope, but be sure that together we can act at the global level, utilizing this instrument of representative related, linked with direct and with participatory democracy, in order to get structural, sustainable, and systemic peace. I mean, one word, peace, could be included in all our policy. We have to write policy for peace and forget about war. United Nations write a declaration for peace, and we, the member states of United Nations, to sign with the soul, and all citizens to sign this declaration for peace. We need peace. We do not fight for peace. We have to collaborate together for peace and avoid war. War is illegal. For together. Right now, excuse me, but declaration for peace is a priority for all citizens, especially for women of our planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry, we need
Yes.
to get
Okay.
the panel going.
Yes.
I don't know how to
Thank
stop.
you.
Hello,
Yeah.
everyone. I see a lot of my friends in this room. So the cookies that I offer to all of you are working. I'm very good. So I wanted us to start on time because we have a lot of things to talk about today. We're missing one of our speakers. I really hope he finds the way into this room. I don't know him. His name is Andreas. Maybe Carol knows him, or like someone from Democracy International knows him, but let's trust the universe. Or Luisa, you can Okay. So for those who don't know me, my name is Greta Rios. I am Mexican. I am the co-executive director at an organization that's called People Power. People Power is a global hub for participatory democracy. And our mission is to expand people's power to make governance decisions by supporting organizations and governments that are building participatory democracy around the world. And I know that some of you are wondering what we mean when we say participatory democracy. So in broader terms, participatory democracy is a form of democracy that enables community members to make the policy decisions that affect their lives together with the government. So it's when people have citizen assemblies or when people participate in participatory planning processes and they can be part of that decision-making process of something that is going to affect their lives. Participatory democracy has a lot of ways to make itself appear. You know, sometimes it's not so black or white whether something is participatory democracy, but in People Power, right now we're working with 5 different mechanisms of participatory democracy, which are participatory budgeting, legislative theater, participatory planning, participatory policy making, and citizens assemblies. And today with me in the panel, I have amazing people who are doing just incredible work out there with some of these participatory democracy practices. So I want you to please welcome to this panel the following people. I have to say that the first name here is Katie Rubin. Katie is not in this room right now, but she is part of the forum. She's actually not in this room because she's so famous that she's participating in another workshop at the same time. So we're going to be able to watch a video that she recorded for us, but she said that she's more than willing to talk to each of you if you have some questions about what she does, which is legislative theater. So that's Katie Rubin. We also have Eva Makiewicz right here. She's coming from Poland today. We have Andres Falk, who is, in my mind, he's Spanish, but he was born elsewhere. He can tell you a little bit. And actually, his name is not Andres, but Anders. But you know, like Spanish speakers, we call him Andres. Andras Farkas is Romanian, who is working with participatory budgeting and schools, and I'm pretty hopeful that he will find his way into the panel because I really want to meet him. And Caroline Hagelskamp. I rehearsed a lot with her name, Caroline, because for me it's so long, but I hope I said it correctly. Caroline is a researcher who's based in Germany, and she's also going to talk a little bit about PV. So let's make a little experiment and see if Katie Rubin's video is going to play correctly. Let's hope for the best.
Hello everyone at the Global Forum, and hello to my fellow panelists from People Power. I'm here at the Global Forum, but I'm
Sorry. My bad.
leading a workshop right now at the same time, so I will see you in the hallway. and perhaps tomorrow. We're glad to be here by video for this session. My name is Katie Rubin, and I'm a legislative theater practitioner. I'm also a senior fellow at People Powered, and I'm excited to join the conversation about concrete impacts happening all over the world via participatory democracy, and particularly today I'll talk about legislative theater. So, before we get into some real world impacts, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what legislative theater is. If you know People Powered, you might see Josh Lerner, the executive director, all the way in the right-hand corner of this image. This was a legislative theater event in New York City from 2017. So what is legislative theater? It's a participatory democracy methodology that comes originally from Brazil, as many of our participatory democracy tools do. In the 1990s, invented or started by the director and activist Wall, who was particularly a city councilor in Rio de Janeiro, and it comes out of the tradition of theater of the oppressed and popular education, and is now being used around the world in lots of different contexts. I've worked with legislative theater in New York City for many years, and now for the past 4.5 years I've been working around the UK and internationally to develop and advance this model. So this model is all about, just like all of our participatory tools, really being interactive, really breaking down the power dynamics and barriers between decision maker and resident, or between speaker and audience. So even though I'm not here, we're going to get a little participatory for a moment. So I would like to just warm up into thinking about using theater to develop policy and change politics. So if you can just raise your right hand, right, so like I am, one finger here and make a circle. Right hand. There you go. Right finger fabulously. So keep that going. Keep that going. Now raise your left hand and make a plus sign. Excellent. Go ahead, keep that plus sign going. Keep that plus sign going. Now just a plus sign. Keep it going. And now bring that right hand back and write People Powered with your right hand while you make a plus sign with your left hand. Oh, okay. We're all absolutely struggling and confused and upside down because of the rest of the flaws. We start that way to encourage us to be able to think about problems, structures, rules, and laws in communities, our neighborhoods, our cities, our countries, that we want to turn upside down. To have a little bit of fun, but also think about what is it going to take in terms of that challenge and stepping outside of our comfort zone to turn those bad rules, those ineffective rules upside down. So we start every process that in a legislative theater event or in a legislative theater initiative with playing, with games, in order to build a story or a scene that articulates a policy problem. So we gather as communities impacted by local or national or regional policy and practice, play games, tell stories, and articulate that shared experience into a scene or a play, which really illustrates the human and lived impact of inequitable, out-of-date, or ineffective policies and practices. So here you see young people in Greater Manchester creating a scene about their experiences with the mental health system and mental health services of the NHS. In particular, when you call emergency services for a mental health crisis and the police are part of the response, and what that does to the family, to the young person, to the neighbors in terms of possibly escalating the situation. So in this play, we're asking, what else could be the policy or the practice instead of the police being the first response in a mental health crisis? Legislative theater may address housing, climate justice, urban planning. Here you see young people and disabled people from Glasgow informing Glasgow City Council's transport and sustainability plans in the lead up to COP26, or economic development, immigration, socio-environmental conflict, and many other social and policy issues, including this project that was done with People Powered and Instituto de Política Abierta in Colombia last year around socio-environmental conflict and access to water in Buenaventura, Colombia. And through making those plays, articulating those problems, we're now ready to take that question, that policy frame that we've made as a community to an audience of stakeholders, local and national government, community organizations, lawyers, residents, advocates. Warming everybody up first, right? Really, at every step of the way, thinking about overturning those traditional power dynamics of policymaking, so everyone is an active participant in the process. And then, after we've analyzed the problems in the play, we actually invite audience members to try out new ideas on stage, to test them, to negotiate through improvisation, right? This is live policy testing to reveal further opportunities or barriers. So we're stress testing policy proposals and ideas on stage in real time with the real people who live these challenges, leading to everyone in the audience being ready and prepared and confident to draft proposals for new policy or practice to address the problems. Then we bring together those diverse stakeholders, policymakers, including, again, local, national, government, advocates, lawyers, community members, to sort those proposals, negotiate, bring them together into the top 3 most popular ideas so that we're ready to have a debate, amendments, all of this happening in real time in front of everyone, aiming towards transparency and accountability in policymaking. So the question here is, how many parts of the policymaking process can happen on stage and not behind the scenes? Finally, after these questions, debate, amendments, we're ready for a vote to prioritize the proposals, and then that voting being part of the game, right, a part of the fun, joy and fun being really key to this process as a way to bring people in, keep them coming back, and encourage creative solutions to often really difficult and sticky problems. The last piece, and sometimes the most theatrical moment, is when participating decision makers commit to clear and measurable follow-up actions within their areas of influence, so that we know exactly what's going to happen on all the proposals in the next 6 to 8 weeks, and we can keep the audiences, everyone involved, informed on the progress of those proposals. And that is, of course, not the end, because policymaking is iterative, it happens over a long time. We continue to use those theatrical and storytelling methods to advocate for the proposals, and we celebrate wins together. And this is many stakeholders from the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, which is a region in England of 2 million people, including the city of Manchester, which is where I happen to live these days, as well as other participatory democracy folks from around the world. And we're celebrating the GMCA's win for best practice in citizen participation in the International Participatory Democracy in 2022 for the GMCA's legislative theater process to co-create their first ever, and England's first ever, 5-year for 2019, with the new mayor for the whole region, for the city region, and that mayor made a commitment to end homelessness in Greater Manchester, which was really on the rise and has still been quite a challenge in the region. And he made that commitment, Andy Gordon, the mayor, to do that in processes that they call co-produced with people experiencing homelessness. So they tried lots of different co-productions, essentially participatory decision making. But there was a lot of frustration that co-production felt tokenistic, or still the very key decisions were being made behind closed doors with just kind of traditional or formal policymakers. And Greater Manchester had a mandate to come up with a strategy to prevent homelessness at this moment that they were facing this critique about the kinds of co-production that they were doing. So this is where they turn to legislative theater as a tool, and sometimes we like to think about legislative theater as a tool when nothing else is working, everybody's mad at each other, we might as well try theater to make our policies, right? And I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek because we also know that it's really effective and it really works, but we can say that to kind of the policymakers who might be a little bit more hesitant to engage in something that feels so risky. So they went ahead, they spent the money, they budgeted for this legislative theater process, and it was a big, long process. So not just a few weeks, a few months, a few people. 3 plays addressing 3 key areas that have already been identified as key to homelessness prevention, with 35 residents of Greater Manchester with experience of homelessness across those 3 plays. hundreds of audience members, online and in person, in the ins and outs of COVID, we still did this project. Coming up with 23 policy proposals, which after a long period of negotiation were all integrated into the final homelessness prevention strategy, leading to millions of pounds of spending. And really concrete interventions that have been ongoing, like people with lived experience of homelessness being hired at a management level in the GFCA, in the combined authority. Grants to national government to expand their programs around supporting immigrants who are experiencing homelessness, supporting women who are coming out of domestic violence, all different kinds of communities that were particularly highlighted in the legislative theater process. So this is one example. There's some more examples here. This work has really been growing and growing, and we're really kind of, as I think all of us are, my inquiry is about how can we not only get these things happening, but really get concrete impacts that we can point to and be able to say to other policymakers and communities, this is a really effective and viable strategy. For example, in Glasgow, independent evaluations show that this process not only increased youth participation in COP26 and engagement with policymakers, but also led the council to create really kind of simple and low budget interventions like an easy read site where anyone in Glasgow can click and find out the progress of a development application for new buildings that would affect their local green spaces, because this is one of the issues like how do we know when something's going to be built up in our local green spaces or open spaces, right? So I'll stop there for now. There's plenty of other examples, and not just from the UK, from New York City, from Brazil, including a massive project by domestic workers, which led to the expansion of Social Security protections to include domestic workers, impacting literally millions of people across Brazil. Projects in Austria, projects in Zimbabwe, that People Power has been supporting. And I look forward to talking about some of these with you, not today in this one session, but possibly tomorrow in the legislative theater mock session, the workshop that will be happening, or around the conference. So thank you so much, and I will see you soon.
Thank you, Katie. As I said, Katie is in the conference, but she's right now in an adjacent room, in another panel. So if you have questions for Katie, she is available for you. Maybe today, starting at 7:15. Okay, so that was legislative theater. Let's go with citizens' assemblies. And for our expert today in citizens' assemblies is Eva Makiewicz. She's representing the Field of Dialogue Foundation, which is based in Poland. She's a practitioner with experience in designing, coordinating, and facilitating deliberative processes in both Poland and Georgia. Together with the Center for Blue Democracy, she supports capacity building by providing trainings for citizens' assemblies coordinator. Eva, the floor is yours. We don't have a mic, so you can come here or whatever. Yeah, that would be cool.
Hi everyone, welcome to this session. I'm very happy I get to speak about citizens' assemblies to you, because that is one of my biggest interests and passions in recent years. Why am I here today? Because my colleague, Mateusz, who you also might have seen in the agenda, couldn't be with us here today. He was supposed to bring this presentation to you, but hopefully I will fill his shoes, and it's going to be fun and educating for you as well. When it comes to the organization I represent, Field of Dialogue Foundation, we are based in Poland, and we are one of the biggest organizations that do citizens' participation and deliberation in the country. We have supported citizens' assemblies in Warsaw, Krakow, Rzeszów, so like most of the big cities in Poland. So we have our personal and practical experience in this area. And personally, before I came to this team, I also had the opportunity to support 3 citizens' assemblies in Georgia. One of them is still kind of happening. It's happening this year in cities Rozpavi and Ozurgeti, together with European Commission, the office in Georgia. So I will mostly be speaking about Polish experience and Georgian experience. I know that this session is technically about post-Soviet countries, So I will try to bring in also the knowledge I have from our capacity building trainings that we did in some of the post-Soviet countries. Hopefully this will fill your hunger for the topic. I will start with something very basic, knowing that not everyone in the room might be efficient in citizens' assembly knowledge. I know that this is a very popular tool, but to some extent it is still quite niche in a way that we are catching the deliberative way. A lot of people are talking about citizens' assemblies. My experience is that not everyone understands them the same way, so it's good to set some basic understanding of what citizens' assemblies are, how they work, and why they are brought to life. So for basic, I know that there was a presentation already including citizens' assemblies today, at the beginning of the day. Hopefully some of you got to catch that. A representative from FIDE North America talked about it as well, and she kind of listed 3 basic things that she thinks are necessary to call something a citizens' assembly. Some of the things that she mentioned are here listed, but one of them is not, and I will tell you in a second why. So, basic needs to have a citizens' assembly. You need to have random selection of citizens because citizens' assemblies provide you with this idea that if you get a randomly selected representative group of people into a room, get them educated on a topic, there is a high possibility they will come up with outcomes that will work in any other group similarly, and that those outcomes will take into consideration variety of options, variety of perspectives, and variety of ways of life. So the main goal of citizens' assemblies is to maybe tap into the diversity that we have in society and try to get as much as possible out of this diversity in a constructive, in a structured way. Random selection is one step of getting the right group of the people in the room. Random selection means that I do not get to nominate who is in the room as a participant. It's also not the municipality who decides, it's not the mayor who decides. It's not a gathering of stakeholders who usually take part in consultative meetings. It is supposed to be random. A person who would maybe not take part in political gathering in their lives is supposed to be invited to this process in a different way. In most cases, random selection is done through sending out invitations, personal or household invitations, where just a random set of, for example, 10,000 addresses from the certain area where the citizens' assembly is happening is drawn. And those people living in those households get the opportunity to register to take part in a citizens' assembly. This way we really make sure that we do not only get people who are already interested in the topic, we minimize the personal bias that comes with that, and we also reach out to people who maybe normally wouldn't get the notification on their Facebook, or maybe are not as eager to look at the pages of municipality. Random selection is the first. Random selection of households is the first step. Then people who receive the invitation register to take part, and the final step is a random selection through an algorithm where we select what representativeness means to us. Do we want to diversify the group by the sex of the participants or gender? Do we want to diversify them by their level of education, the area in the city they live in, their vocation, whatever other aspects of representativeness we want to include in the group. The random selection, the algorithm that does the final random selection takes that into consideration, sees what the percentages in the society are, more or less, and puts that into our group, so that our final group that we have in the assembly is broadly representative of the public that's out there, living in the city or in the country, whatever level your citizens' assembly is. Now that we have the randomly selected representative group in our room, we want them to make a decision. But it wouldn't be fair to ask them to make any decisions before they have had the opportunity to really get to know something about the topic. We can assume that if they register to take part, they are most likely somewhat interested in raising an opinion or talking about their experience. But as we know, people are not always in today's society. We have a lot of contact with fake news, with unchecked information. So the learning phase that the Citizens Assembly provides is supposed to make rules even for everyone. You got the same kind of knowledge that we, like the coordinating team feels is needed for making a decision on this topic. We provided diversity of perspectives, not just one side that you might see in your own informational bubble, but as diverse of a vision as possible. Of course, this is ideal concept. And we want you to reflect on that, see if maybe that changes your opinion somewhat. If not, then let's get into deliberation and see what you come up with talking to the rest of the group. Deliberation is a tough word, also just understood in different ways. Basically, it means coming to conclusions together through discussion. So this is also a crucial part in the process of the Citizens Assembly, that people who got there, people who are representative and randomly selected, and learned about a topic, talk to each other about what they learned, about their personal experience, because it's also valid, and kind of try to come up with solutions, a list of solutions that is viable to most of them, at least most of them. If you have worked with citizens assemblies, you will obviously know this, but citizens assemblies are different depending on where you go. They might have different standards for the processes. So one citizens assembly is not equal to another citizens assemblies, but these four aspects of them, I would say, are absolutely universal. The speaker talking earlier today also mentioned that citizens assemblies should be, how do you say that? That a government or a governing body should begin this process. They should initiate this process. In my personal Polish experience, this is not always the case, so I would not say that this is a crucial part. I would say it's crucial for the effectiveness of the assembly, but just because something does not have the governmental backing doesn't mean it's not a citizens assembly as a tool. But yeah, this was a very brief introduction. I know you might have some questions on that, to answer them later. You might also not agree with everything I say. It's also fine. Citizens assemblies are a hell of a tool. When it comes to good practice principles, most recognized are the OECD policies, which I will show you. And these are good practice principles of deliberative processes that were created in a cooperation between a lot of experts internationally. This is kind of the bare minimum that they agreed that they could agree on. That this
for democracy, if it's effective to use democratic disaffection and democratic backsliding. So, well, my answer is going to be yes, because if it wasn't yes, I wouldn't be standing up here. But I'm going to argue why. You see, I think we are facing a series of problems that have been put on the table already, like the low trust, the low engagement in political activity, the exclusion of certain parts of the population with lower income, gender bias, cultural migration, excludes certain parts of the population in participation, and definitely also underage children are by law they're excluded from political participation, or at least in the summit of political participation that it has traditionally been understood, which is voting. All of this relates with this authoritarian trend that we're living. And so I don't know each of your countries, but there are really a big load of countries out there where this authoritarian trend, where it's strongest and highest, is in the younger population between 18 and 25. So we're talking about those who were children the day before yesterday. Right? So like the first thought, strong thought here would be we need to develop democracy and participation of children, because we can't wait to see it turn to 18 and then try to make a cultural change, because we're talking about a cultural change in the way we look at democracy and participation. So the second question would be, so is any participation useful to engage children in political debate? Is any participation good enough to build participatory democracy? And as Greta said before, participatory democracy is a complex concept. There are different standards of what is participatory democracy. I would be using the standards of which is maybe democracy has to be inclusive, participation has to be so. People who weren't participating before have to be participating now. The second one is that decision making has to be empowering. This means that we are participating to create something that is important to us. And the third one would be that through participation, we learn about our democracy, about our institutions, and we grow stronger in our ability to interact with the political system, right? So, a lot of participation that is being carried out with children sometimes fails to meet certain standards, and some criticism has been brought up, like, for example, self-selection bias. So when we're talking about self-selection bias, normally participation with children is initiated when especially local governments carry out participation with children. It is initiated with an open invitation for children to volunteer through schools normally to take part in the participatory process. So we know there's a strong bias because there are a lot of children who feel less empowered, who feel less related to politics, who feel less related to collective decision making and deliberation, who from the start won't be taking part in this discussion. Right? And so that's one of the issues that we find in children's participation, by the way, also in adult ones. The second one, which is related to the first one, is low inclusiveness. Right? Because as we start off with the bias of selection, or self-selection in this case, then we will be giving more space, more time to kids who are more proactive, who have a stronger leadership. Maybe there will be more ideas that come from male kids more than girls, right? More from boys than from girls. And then specifically with children, there's this problem that many times institutions have these expectations that the children are going to gather, they're going to participate over a certain amount of time, and they're going to end up behaving as adults, delivering conclusions that seem like those that we would expect from adult people. And that's not the point. The point is children in their own communication register, in their own way of speaking, in their own way of doing things, telling adults what they think about whatever else they've been asked for. Right? So this picture here has a little bit of that intention behind it. I'm not going to deny that, but I think you get the idea of these. Adult children, right? So can we carry out different processes with children that are seeking for deep participatory democracy outcomes? And again, obviously my answer is going to be yes, and again, I'll give you a little more detail. So children are actually more, or the other way around. It's much easier and less expensive for an institution to reach out in seeking for a profound participation process. It's much easier and cheaper to reach out to children than it is to adult people because children, all in certain ages at least, and I'm not talking about 100%, and now it depends a bit on countries, but let's say 99%, will be attending schools. So you have a school grid which covers the territory through which you can actually build a direct communication with children all over whatever region, country, or local or municipality that we're looking at. And just as an example, in Portugal, for example, all schools have to carry out participatory budgeting with children, right? So all children in Portugal at least have the chance. So now again, the self-selection bias could be cutting out some of them, but still, all children in Portugal have the chance to participate in the decision of how the funding for those schools, a small percentage, but how this funding is going to be, how it's going to be allocated. But if we take it even further, if we, for example, said, instead of opening up a PB in all schools in the country, where those kids who are voluntary, they take part in that discussion about the budgets, if we take it to a classroom and we say, all kids when they reach 6th grade, for example, are going to participate in the discussion about how this budget is going to be allocated, then you eliminate the self-selection bias, and you're going to be working with all groups. So you can actually, with a very low budget, with low investment, and with not too much complexity in the organizing, you can actually reach out to a participatory stage with all children at a certain time in their life throughout a country or any other territory. To finish it off, of course, the dynamics have to be deliberatory, and they have to be fun. They have to be delivered in a playful way. Again, we're talking with children in their terms, not in our terms. So it has to be through play, through fun, and then there has to be an intersectional focus. So we have to be facilitators or teachers or whoever is going to carry that out. They have to be observing the class and see who are those who are participating less, and find the mechanics to get them involved in small groups where they can feel free to take part in the discussions. So the final question, maybe not the final one, you can come up with other ones later on. But my final question is, so do kids commit in these participatory processes? Again, yes, I mean, the evidence is really strong. Children participating in processes where they have time to deliberate, where they have time to feel comfortable, where they have the right facilitation, do actually commit very much with the processes and with the outcome of the processes. And so they will prove to be very responsible and to be reasonable in their proposals and to understand the limits, the budgetary limits, and to understand the technical limits. Maybe not straight away, but through conversation, through connection with technical staff, developments, etc., will actually understand perfectly these limits, and they tend also to be fair. They are much more community focused than adults actually. The headline here would be, in any case, that you only learn to participate through participation. Nobody can tell you technically how you participate in something that you have to live. And I would end up saying that giving kids a chance to have a participation, relevant participation in political decision making on the local level before they reach the age of 18 is certainly a way of creating democratic culture, it's certainly a way of lowering mistrust, institutional mistrust, and it's certainly a way to get more adults on board in participatory processes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andres. I was so nervous that I forgot to introduce you. So I'm going to do that after you spoke. Okay, so Andres is is the founder of CoGlobal, a Spanish non-profit that assists local governments through the design of actions for participatory democracy, with a special focus on inclusivity of underrepresented groups. So now it all makes sense, right? Okay, thank you so much, Andres. And now let's go with Andras. Andras is the co-founder and the strategic director at Pont Group, which is a social innovation organization. He's also the co-founder of Audio-Time, a startup. He's fond of international relations, social innovation systems, participatory processes, urban development, but also time and consciousness. Welcome to this panel, Andras. You can speak from here or from there. You look a lot like your picture.
And also I'm not so important in the whole story. I'm coming from Cluj, Romania, so compared to where you are coming from, probably I'm just coming from nearby, and sorry for being late today. I experienced depressed traffic. I don't know if you did, but it is as it should be at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, so I'm really sorry. I want to show you a 2.5-minute video which will explain everything, and then I don't need to speak anything else later on. So let's see.
Welcome to Come On, the participatory budgeting project for young people in Cluj. If you're a youth that looked at the city and told yourself, I know what the city is missing, or I can do this better, then this is the film you're looking for. Let's start at the beginning, which we all know is the most difficult part. What is participatory budgeting? It's a process aimed at enhancing citizens' active participation in the decision-making processes in a democratic way. It allows people to find the best way to spend public budgets. That's all. Are you still with me? Practically, it's part of the city's budget upon which you, the citizen, decide. You come up with your ideas, others come up with theirs. From there, we decide together on the projects and what money will be allocated to make them happen. Come On helps fulfill what youth citizens in the European Youth Capital want. 500,000 of aid will be used to realize 250 projects. Can someone come up with just any kind of idea? Well, sort of. We're looking for projects that contribute to the active participation of citizens in Romania, take place in public and common places, and assure free access for everyone. Do you have an idea? Bring it on. Come on. This is your chance to make a real change in this city. Come On Cluj will also teach you how different mechanisms like the NGO sphere, and the voting system all function throughout the city. Great. What should you do? Just go to cc.yourcluj.ro. Here you can find a simple form where you can register your project. Choose between the categories like space, culture, work, power, joy, vision, but if you have more than one idea, that's not a problem. Any team can register up to 5 projects. What team? Yes, you have to have a team. Each team must have at least 3 people between the ages of 14 and 35. You just need to have at least 2 other people. That's all. There are no other restrictions whatsoever. So you send your ideas, then what? Who will select the best ones? You. All the young people from Cluj can vote. So young people decide. The jury being the public. And now? So now, gather your friends together, go cook up your biggest idea, and sign up. We're waiting for you. Come on.
So thank you. And there are some creative designers who actually drew this, so it was a very good scenery. This was the video.
Welcome to Come On, the participatory budgeting project.
So, we were European Youth Capital back in 2015, so it was a very good contact in somehow enabling young people to do things from in the community. And we told them in the city hall back then is that we believe that there are a lot of young people who are not involved in these organizations or any other organizations who like to do things in the Youth Capital program. So let's use the tool of participatory budgeting, and yes, it's very debatable and this is a very strict participatory budgeting or not. But basically, it's public money and people decide about the money, so it is in this sense. But what we said, there are a lot of informal groups who would like to do things. So we use this video. This was obviously prepared also in 3 languages, so in Romanian, Hungarian, because there is a 15% Hungarian community in the city, but also in English for a lot of expats, students, and everybody, to just come up with the ideas. Imagine that in the first year, 450 ideas came up. The big difference between a standard participatory budgeting, and Caroline will give you a small masterclass because I saw her slide deck. about what is the theory of change for a general participatory budgeting, and I think that's a very good summary of what she will tell you. But what we said, and what was a small difference compared to basic participatory budgeting, is that the young people who were proposing the idea, if they got voted by the citizens, they were also responsible for implementing the ideas. So it was a little bit, it was not like I'm proposing the idea, then you vote, and then the city hall or somebody will take care of the idea because it's an investment. It was about community initiatives. Very small amount, as you saw, the whole budget for the initiative cannot be more than €1,000. So we are doing this since then, and believe it or not, it survived the pandemic. In the pandemic, it was more or less the only youth initiative which could be implemented, because it was about small-scale activities. So it was the thing which people could do, small-scale activities. Festivals weren't organized, anything else wasn't organized, but these things actually happened. So what we try to do now, and I want really to focus on how we think and how we believe this process locally is still flawed and needs to be improved, is that now we managed to get, besides the public funding from the municipality, we managed to get some international funding in consolidating the whole system. So, because Caroline will tell you about theory of change, we also were trying to deliver or to develop a theory of change for the whole story. And it is basically this triangle of things. So what is command about? And what is, in this case, participatory budgeting for youth about? It is mostly about the relationship between young people and the community. Okay, so it's a bilateral relationship. Young people come up with the ideas, citizens are either participating in the ideas, voting for the ideas, or engaging somehow with these ideas. So it's about an empowerment on the young people's side, but also on the other side, a build-up of trust in the young generation. Saying that young people can be serious, can be reliable, can propose creative ideas, and can solve problems in the city. So this is the most important relationship. And obviously then there is the ecosystem, which is not just the municipality, but there are a lot of other actors involved who needs to support this relationship. So basically we cannot do things instead of the community, instead of young people, we shouldn't do, but we need to enable somehow this relationship to happen. So basically this is what we are focusing on, and what we are saying, there's a lot of ugly text here, sorry for I usually don't put these kind of text. This is a kind of impact side and outcome side of what we try to do for the next 3 years. And basically it's about, again, this triangle. So what we say, and I would like to highlight you some words here because we're really carefully considering them. What is the most important side of your people? There are 3 things: responsible, active, and adaptive. We had a lot of debate about using adaptive or resilient as a word. But it is about how we imagine how young people can function the best in the city. On the other side, though, besides them being models also for their kids, on the other side, we also have some very proposition for the community itself. Like, young people cannot thrive if the community is not more inclusive, not more sustainable overall, and not more supportive towards young people. And when I'm saying supportive, I actually have a very clear picture about this. I think that every city should provide basically 3 things for young people, which is very oversimplification of a lot of policies and strategies. But we believe that it is about public and private spaces for young people, so where young people live, basically. It's housing, it's public spaces, it's places where they can meet, but it's about how we organize the city as a space for young people. The second one is a lot of human support, meaning services, access to various opportunities, counseling, mentoring, facilitating, whatever you say. So it's the human part. And the third is about money. So we really think that young people should have access to money also. Not just to services which can be transformed into financial numbers, but to funding which is about them being able to do things. And this should be as simple as possible. So this is what we try to do here. And how, again, a very ugly design here is how we imagine this could happen in the next few years, and we are really focusing on this is, again, delivering participatory budgeting mechanisms every year. We have this big difference, and I really like Andres' presentation about the school version, because we say that we have some standard additions happening at city level, but we should also go with some smaller additions into either school, a neighborhood, maybe a community in the metropolitan area who are sometimes not engaged because the city limits and the municipality cannot fund something which is happening in the metropolitan area. But the question is how we can involve other municipalities also in this story in the metro area. We need to do a lot of with the standard processes, again, applying, voting, and implementation. You will see this also in Caroline's slides. But then we need to do a lot of background things, like community development. We had this experience that if young people come together and they see each other doing things, it will be much more empowering than if I would go there and I would say to them, well, do something, because they just don't believe me anymore. But they believe themselves, they believe each other, and if you manage to create those settings where they can meet and they can interact, then there are a lot of positive energies really coming out of this. Again, we need to work a lot on the community side. We need to help explain young people, because maybe young people don't have the outreach, that it is important for the community to give feedback to young people. Like if it's a voting mechanism, if it's participating in an activity, it doesn't matter, but we need to support this. We need to help also young people in how to implement ideas. Let me just give you a stupid 30-second example about one of the last year's initiatives where one group of young people came up with an idea to put some posts before monument buildings, which were explaining verbally, like with sound, what is the monument about. And this was for visually impaired young people. They submitted their request to the municipality to have the approval to put these posts because they were on public space, and they were rejected. And then they called us in desperation, like, why did they reject us? This was basically, why did the city hall reject us? And then we had back channels, we asked the city hall what happened, and the real story wasn't behind that. They just submitted the request to the wrong department of the municipality. So we solved the problem in half an hour, but if the background weren't being in place, those young people would have left this whole process with the idea that City Hall doesn't want us, we don't want to interact with the public sector anymore, and we don't want to do things because we will be rejected. So this is the complication in behind for a very simple process at the front end level. So we really need to work a lot. We really believe we need to do a lot of creative thinking. Personally, I think that at this moment, Common Cluj has a flawed voting system because we have this feeling that it is a popularity contest, and it shouldn't be. So when we question how we can create some deliberative processes to which the agreement might not just be reached through voting, maybe there is a voting at the end, but how we can connect some of the initiatives. So maybe some teams working together on an idea, maybe looking at some neighborhoods, not having competitions between neighborhoods, for example, which can be again somehow damaging. So this is why I think that it is a process which is kind of complicated. But what I would like to say at the end, and this is just a final thought on my side, is that what we tried to do last year and 2 years ago is just to try to understand what was the impact of this process in 7 years. So really, and it wasn't me saying this, there were really some sociologists, by the way, the Sociological University, but not this one, but for the one from Cluj. They said that it has a lot of, just look around, like producing social capital, which I think is very good. Mobilizes young people to contribute to integration, thematization and solution of typical youth problems. So by proposing an idea, basically young people express that they are preoccupied by something. So this is why they would like to do something about it. It is something which is kind of bringing the community together. Imagine that in the first year where we had a lot of budget for Norwegian funds, in that year 18,000 individuals voted in the process, which is a lot. They could vote for several initiatives, but if you have a lot of background resources, by the way, you need funding for this, obviously from the municipality, but not just funding for the initiatives themselves. They need to support somehow also the background mechanisms, because you need to communicate about this, because you will not reach out. You will not reach everybody from young people. You need a lot of people who are youth workers or facilitators who can work with young people when they have this initial thought of proposing something, but they don't know because they weren't taught in school how to write down a project idea. We are experimenting in another Romanian city with the idea not to present a proposal in writing, but to propose an idea in 5 minutes video. And approximately 60% of the young teams decided to propose a video and not write written stuff. So it's a very good food for thought for us that maybe we need to cooperate a little bit, because documents, papers, forms are not the way forward, but we need to adapt somehow to the young people's way of thinking, of using technology, of interacting and everything. And yes, we don't have a TikTok channel, which we know it's wrong, but we don't know how to handle TikTok. This year we are trying to involve some young journalists who are really young at age, like 20, 21 years, but they are still studying journalism, how to teach us or how to do TikTok themselves in order to reach that part of the community, of the youth community who we have no idea how to reach. Instagram maybe works, but like here at least TikTok is the benchmark. So we need to learn on this. So my final thought, because I really don't want to keep your time, is that I think that for everybody who's involved in the process, and sometimes I still need to pinch myself to understand that the city hall, why does the city hall trust this? Because at the beginning they were really reluctant about this. But somehow they understand that they still invest every year and increasing budget in this, is that they realize that something is happening in the city which helps the municipality also do their own job in a better way. So I think that's one side. On the other side, I really believe there is a lot of trust created in the city, and somehow my feeling is that if this trust is created also between generations, then this kind of sense of belonging to the city and ownership of the city is happening. And if I'm looking to Cluj in 20, 30 years, I'm really doing the mathematics. Like, sorry for saying this, but this generation of young people will pay our pensions. So the question is, where will they be? If they will not be in our cities, they will not pay our pensions. So who will pay our pensions? So what do we need to do because of this? We need to somehow understand and create a setting where they can imagine whatever city they would like to have. And what we need to do is to accept that whatever they come up with, it is what they want to do. And we might mentor this, support this, but we cannot say no to that. So this is why I think that participatory budgeting, in this case in the youth version, is really like helping this a little bit, because it's a very good exercise for everybody to just learn how this future is coming towards us. So thank you very much, and really sorry for this.
Thank you so much, Andras. I heard that you need to learn how to dance for TikTok. So let us know when you're ready for your TikTok account. I will follow you. Okay, so our last speaker today is Caroline Hagelskamp. Caroline is a professor of social science and psychology at the Berlin School of Economics and Law. She has been an active participant in and researcher of participatory budgeting since 2012. She studied the impacts on individuals, communities, and government, especially in the US and Germany. So this part of the workshop is for when your mom asks you, so why do you do that? This is what you're going to be able to answer. Caroline, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy that you explained participatory budgeting. So I can skip a slide. I hope you all listen well to Anda. And I'm here to tell you what the research says about participatory budgeting. Participatory budgeting has been around for 30 years or so. It's been expanding massively in the last 15 years. And we also have a very rich international research base on participatory budgeting. Obviously, there's more to do, but there's also a lot we can look at if we're looking for some evidence. And I've spent some time with a lot of other PD researchers as members of People Power to create what we hope are more accessible ways of communicating research. I brought some of our research briefs. There's also videos on that, webinars on that, and we have QR codes in the end, so if you can't listen right now anymore, I understand. All the resources are here. If you are quick, you can get them, or you look them up later. So this is one. A lot of the research is already out there. It somewhere fits into this theory of change on participatory budgeting that we created at People Power, obviously based on the literature that's there. And I'm going to walk you through it quickly, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we know. So first, this is kind of follows the, I'm sure some of you, or most of you have seen this before, this logic model idea. We start with inputs. So what goes, we think about what goes into a process. And obviously a lot goes into it, and what goes into it matters. And I highlight a few things that particularly matter for good processes, for processes that engage a lot of people, and also we care a lot about social justice at People Power. So we also look at what makes PB processes more socially equitable. And technology obviously is something that's needed. You can't have a PB process without technology anymore, but also we know from research that you're not reaching everybody with that, and the processes that are just based on tech, that are just online or just digital, tend to die after a few years. and also definitely not reaching the most marginalized people. So even I did some research recently with youth in Germany, a survey of how they would like to be engaged with their local governments. And obviously they want to be engaged digitally, but they also want to be in person, meeting people in local government, and they want to do that with their peers. And then we have activities. So participatory budgeting is, there's a lot going on. Well, not always, if you do it well, there's a lot going on. If you don't do it so well, it's done really quickly, nobody noticed. But there's a lot of potential activities here, and each of these activities, there's a lot of research on how people power knows that and teaches that, how to design that well, to design that so that it's equitable and inclusive and fun. And we know that there need to be spaces for people to deliberate and meet each other in order to learn anything from the process. If you just put an idea online and then 6 months later you vote, you probably didn't learn that much about government. We know a lot about the design of the vote. For example, processes where you have more than one vote. People, at least after a few years, you see that people tend to vote more broadly. And we also know a little bit about the design of the ballot. For example, if you bundle, this might sound obvious, but we actually have quantitative evidence that if you bundle projects, so if you see, different schools, they actually all want the same thing, well, make it one project on the ballot, obviously, you may think, but indeed it does significantly raise the possibility that you gain, that you win the vote. Also, we've seen that in many ballots, there's like one sentence on what this project is about, and in New York City, we've looked at hundreds of ballots, and when this sentence includes something that this project is for specifically vulnerable groups, that also significantly increases the chance of winning the vote. So those are some of many things we know about the vote. Then, as every logic model has, there's some outcomes. We just differentiate between outcomes on people, on communities, and government. And these outcomes, I'm going to talk a little bit more about them later in a bit, they become impacts, longer term impacts. So the vision is, that's why we have a sun here, to create a more educated and engaged citizenry, I think is the word, stronger civil society, and government that's more open, more transparent, and more imaginative. So I'm going to go through a few more studies that we all have the references here. So what do we know? So there has been quite a bit of research on surveys and interviews with people who've engaged in PB all over the world. And people who do that, they're not always happy with everything in the process, but they tend to have a feeling that they learned something, especially if they had a chance to meet other people. So they feel they learned something about their community, they also learned more about government. They also say that it's still a little bit that things are difficult and that there's a need to talk across difference and maybe think beyond just what you want for your community. So these are responses from people in the process. There's also a study, there have been two studies in New York City and in Prague that looked at data from regular elections and that could quantitatively show that when districts engaged with PB in the following regular elections, they saw a higher turnout in the vote, and in New York City, especially from people from low-income communities, compared to districts that did not do PB. Obviously, we always want a lot of people to participate. That's not all, but it does have obviously more impact on communities the more people participate. So what is it? What do we know about what increases participation? Well, if you compare TV processes all around the world, there's a correlation between how much money is allocated per capita and in people turn out at the vote. So the bigger the budget, the more people will show up. Then obviously communication matters, and it matters in many ways. In Brazil, there was a big study where they texted and emailed or community, lots of people, thousands of people in the community, and they saw that people who got the message were more likely to turn out for the vote. At the same time, it also really is worthwhile engaging with community-based organizations. So as government, you have good connections to your community-based organizations, you're going to be closer to the people that you want to see at the vote. And not just at the vote, you want to see them doing idea collection, you want to see them volunteering, you want to see them doing proposal development. And community-based organizations are better at getting people out. So good, we have seen also correlations, the more governments collaborate with community organizations, the more, especially low-income people, they see at the voting stage. On the other hand, there's also research that has shown that in PV spaces, more new community-based organizations pop up. So that either people create alliances and little organizations in order to gain something for the process, and also they meet, community-based organizations meet in the PV process and then form alliances that they use beyond the PV process. And then a few highlights on what we know about effects on government. So again, Brazil is the country famously known for PV and with the longest history and most data. And here researchers have found that it's indeed related to generating more tax revenues. We've also seen several times that what gets funded through PV can be different from what people would fund anyway. There's many reasons public officials engage in PV. Getting better ideas or making better decisions is not typically one of them, but we've seen that it actually shifts money to other areas, or it can shift money to other areas from what they would, where money would have been spent otherwise. And in processes that are designed to include equity criteria, so what the point of equity is there from the start to the end, we also see that money tends to move from higher income neighborhoods to lower income neighborhoods. All of that, I think that has been said a few times today, depends on political will, value, capacity, resources and knowledge, and especially in the third point, people power can help. There's a lot of resources and knowledge in that organization. And they're very happy, we are very happy to share that. And here's one way to read up on some of what I just said. And here's some QR codes for the resources. Thank you.